What's up, everybody, and welcome to another Foundations Play Booster color review or set review, however you want to call it. This time, we're on to green. So far, we've covered white, we've covered blue, we covered black, we covered red, and now we are on to green, and then we will cover multicolor, colorless, and review the new lands as well. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it, keeping in mind the perspective that we're taking is as a new competitive player. So I started playing competitively this summer, where I declared that I want to try to qualify for the Pro Tour in the next 5 years. So drafting is one of my weakest skill sets. So one of the things that helps me draft better is doing these set reviews. I am rating the cards. My rating system's a little bit different than maybe some of the pros that you've run into, where I think a standard rating, like a C average, C is an average rating for a card, would be something like a 2 for 2 would be a C. And then it goes up or down from there based off of keywords, synergies, and we might give it a synergistic score as well as maybe a constructed score, or even a commander score sometimes as we look at these cards. So this is slightly for education for you, hopefully mostly for entertainment, and then a ton of education for me. So come along, hang out with me while we go through this and take a look at our first card. All of these will be in ascending CMC order as well as ascending rarity order. So we're going to start off first up with Bushwhack at 1 green as a sorcery in common. And it says choose one, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Or you can have target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. So it is a fight or a fetch card for 1. I really like this. Nice solid BB plus territory. Great for ramping. Plus you could just, it's a fight for 1. Like, it's removal for you. It's great. Gives you options. Next up is a classic. Even I know this card. People like to make fun of me that've been playing competitive Magic for forever. I mean, I've been playing since the 90s, but it's always been cafeteria table, buy my cards at the gas station Magic until this past summer. So some cards I just don't know. I just don't have a history with some of these cards. But this one, I do. I know Giant Growth. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. This is a little bit of a victim of power creep, but still a solid card. C+, B- territory in draft. Like a nice little combat trick that you can drop onto a card and get it to do some really interesting things. But that was the point of the set, right? That was the point of Foundations, is bring back some of the classic cards to make the game easier for people to get into, so that we're not reading a novel every time we're reading a card. It's like, it's simple. It's pay 1, it gets 3/3 until end of turn. Everybody can understand that. So all that to be said, in draft, it might have a little bit of a place at a C+ to B- for a combat trick. And now the classic, the thing that everybody's been talking about, good old Llanowar Elves at 1 green. It's a creature elf druid 1/1. It's also a mana dork at 1. This thing is still great. It's still powerful. Solid B+, maybe even a little bit higher. Especially if you get synergy with the other elves. So there is some elf synergy to be had in this draft. You could definitely see this go higher, but a mana dork for 1, that's a 1/1. Can't go wrong with that. That's an easy grab. Wary Thespian. It's like Wary Watchdog from Duskmourn. It was also a 3/1, and then it enters or dies, and you get to surveil 1. Nice solid card, easy grab and draft. It's gives you that surveil capabilities. Now, there's not things like Delirium that you need to worry about. I was like, what was that term? We're gonna get 4 things, but there is Threshold. So this could be a nice splash for like a black blue deck, splash green. Get some ways to throw some things in the graveyard. But 3/1 body is nice, a decent grab. So C+ territory. Gnarlid Colony is a 1 colorless, 1 green creature beast as a 2/2. So a 2/2 for 2 already. It's at C. You can have a kicker, pay 2, and a green. And if this creature was kicked, it enters with 2 1/1 counters on it. So you could pay 5, and it's a 4/4. And then each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it has trample. So it's a 4/4 with trample for 5. or it's just a 2/2 for 2. I think the flexibility makes it like upwards of a B minus. I would say it's on the low end of a B minus. Next up is Bite Down. It's a 1 colorless, 1 green, and target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker. So it's a bite for 2. A bite for 2. Not bad. I would say decent little removal in that B minus B territory. Maybe it could be a little bit higher, but it probably solid B for sure. Let's go with solid B. Dwynen's Elite. Dwynen's Elite. I'm going with that. 1 colorless, 1 green, creature elf. Pay attention to the elves. 2/2 for 2, so already solid. And then when this creature enters, if you control another elf, create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. So it synergizes with itself. You get a couple of these, you can go wide real quick. Grow from the Ashes. So what grade would we give this? Synergistically, it's like a B plus. On its own, it's still like a B minus. It's 2/2 for 2. Well, 2/2 for 2 on its own is a C, right? That's the scale that we established. If you can get this to synergize with other elves, like it's a B plus territory. Grow from the Ashes is 2 colorless, 1 green. It's a sorcery, and you can kick it for 2. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. If the spell was kicked, instead search your library for 2 basic land cards, and then put them onto the battlefield. So for 5, you can get 2 lands and put it on. So we saw some landfall cards. In like green, we saw some in another color too, or not green, in red. So it's kind of on the pricey side. So I would put it at like a C, maybe a C minus. It is what it's worth. Ambush Wolf. It's 2 colorless, 1 green, creature wolf. It's a 4/2 with flash. I like that. Then this creature enters, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. I would say solid. This is, I would say like that B minus B territory. You could flash it in for removal. You could flash it in at an end step, so when everybody's tapped out, and so now you have a 4/2 on the board. Exile a graveyard, so a card from a graveyard. So if they're doing some crazy like graveyard recursion BS, like you can take care of it. So I would say like a B minus B territory. Beastkin Ranger is a 2 colorless, 1 green creature elf ranger. Yeah, another elf. 3/3, trample. And whenever another creature you control enters, this creature gets +1 and +0 until end of turn. So this could happen multiple times. So if you have multiple creatures enter, this keeps getting +1, +0. And so this could get out of hand real quick. I'm going to put this up in like B plus territory. Broken Wings is a 2 colorless, 1 green instant, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. The limitation on creature with flying is always a little rough. I'm going to give it like a C minus. I haven't gotten to the artifacts yet. Enchantments, there are some pretty decent ones. There are quite a few creatures with flying. So if you're really desperate for some removal, this would be, I wouldn't even say desperate. Like if you need removal, this is decent removal because there is so many things with flying, and the things with flying tend to be the scary things, right? Because if you don't also have flying, it's hard to deal with. So maybe I'll bump up the score. I'll give it like a C plus. Tree Top Snare Spinner is a 3 colorless, 1 green creature spider, 1/4 with reach and death touch. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control, activate only as a sorcery. So you can put the 1/1 on this creature. This is actually pretty good. I would give this like a B for sure. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen those spiders that this reminds me of, but those they like sit in the trees like this. My hands aren't skinny enough. They're like really skinny. And they have these massive webs, and then they sit up in the trees, and the webs are super thick, and they're meant to catch birds exactly like this, like little birds, like little chickadees and things that fly through it. what are those called? Can't remember what the spiders are. They're scary. They're like this big, like this compared to my face. Like they're like this big sitting in the tree. Yeah, it grossed me out. That was my story. They're scary. I don't like it. But yeah, this is a solid card. I definitely snag this. Next up is Cackling Prowler. Is a 3 colorless, 1 green creature hyena rogue. It's got Ward 2 and Morbid. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. So this is pretty nice. This can get pretty big. It's a 4/4 for 3 with Ward 2. Like I'll give it like a B-. If you have some ways to like sack some stuff or make sure some stuff is dying every turn, this can get spicy. Even if you get 1 trigger off of it, it's instantly spicy. It becomes a 5/4. So with Ward 2, like that's nuts. Elfsworn Giant is a 3 colorless, 2 green creature giant. It's a 5/3, and it has reach. Okay. And landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, create a 1/1 green elf warrior. So there's some elf synergies. There's some ramp synergies here with the landfall. The fact that it's a 5/3 with reach, I do like. It can smack some stuff out of the air there. It's kind of small toughness, though, at 3 toughness. This one's a tough one for me. I would say it's a B-. Like, I would snag it in a green deck. The fact it can smack shit out of the air. It's a little late to be taking advantage of landfall, but if you do get some lands or some sack lands, you know, you can easily get a few elves out on the table. Next up is Apothecary Stomper. You know what this one reminds me of? If anybody plays World of Warcraft and there's those mounts that have like the shop. Oh yeah, they're famous for this right now. They have the $90 mount that has like the armor repair, the shop, and then like your mail on it. That's what this reminds me of, is the art at least. But the Apothecary Stomper is a 4 colorless, 2 green creature elephant. For 4/4, it has vigilance, and then when this creature enters, choose 1. Put 2 1/1 counters on target creature you control or gain 4 life. So essentially, it could come out as a 6/6 for 6 with vigilance, which would put it in like the C+ B- territory. But it gives you options. Snakeskin Veils coming back. Snakeskin Veils already here. We have the one. So that was our last common. So now we're on to uncommon. Snakeskin Veil is 1 green. It's an instant. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. It gains hexproof until end of turn. So we're seeing this already in like the Gruul aggro decks. So this is a nice little addition for the instant. Gets the 1/1 and hexproof, so it can protect the creature. Keep it alive if people are going for removal. Wildwood Scourge. Pay X and a green creature, Hydra. It's a 0/0. This creature enters with X 1/1 counters on it. Whenever 1 or more 1/1 counters are put onto another non-Hydra creature you control, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. So this would be a super fun card. Ow. Hit my hand on the desk. This would be a super fun card in Commander, especially in like a counters deck that you may be building. In draft, there are some ways to generate reliably some counters. So you could find some synergies here. So like synergistically, I think this is a B. Like on its own, like you might be able to cast it as like, you might be able to cast it late game as like a 4/4 or 5/5 for 6. Like it's always going to be subpar, right? Because the additional 1. But if you have other ways to add counters onto it, that's when like it synergistically is like a B to a B+. Like on its own, if you can never get another 1/1 counter onto anything else, then this is like a C to C- territory. The flexibility of it probably keep it like a solid C, but the fact that it's always going to be like undervalued for its mana cost because it's always going to be 1 more green is going to kind of keep it down. But if you have other ways to get counters on it, then or on creatures, then this can get out of hand pretty quickly. Mild-Mannered Librarian. 1 green creature human. It's a 1/1. You can pay 3 in a colorless. This creature becomes a werewolf. Put 2 1/1 counters on it and draw a card. Activate only once. So you get to draw a card. So wait, what does this become? It's a 5 CMC for a 3/3 werewolf, and you get to draw a card. So you're paying 2 to draw a card over standard price, which is pretty good. I'd say it's like a B minus, C plus B minus territory. I like the art on that too. Like you get the long fingernails, and then you got like the wolf ears in the background with the wolf claws. Like that's pretty good art. Next up is the Nessian Horn Beetle. 1 colorless, 1 green creature insect 2/2 at the beginning of combat on your turn. If you control another creature with power 4 or greater, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. So that would go well with Hydra. Yeah, told you. There's a way to make 1/1 counters. I think it's funny. The art with this is like a little beetle on a big beetle. Eager Truffle Snout. 2 colorless, 1 green creature boar 4/2 trample. So it's already at par with the 4/2 for 3. It's got trample, so that's going to bump it up like a C plus-ish area. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, create a food token. So I would put that up to like a B minus. Pretty solid card to grab. Garruk's Uprising is a 2 colorless, 1 green enchantment. When this enchantment enters, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. Creatures you control have trample, and then whenever a creature you control with power 4 or greater enters, draw a card. So when this enters, if you have something with 4 or greater, draw a card. And then everything has trample. And then it continues to say whenever a creature you control with power 4 or greater enters, draw a card. So every time you... So this is good for a big stompy deck. I mean, this would be fun for a commander deck. This would be fun, you know, for new players that just want to play a bunch of big cards. I think this is hard to play in draft. So I'd put this at like a C minus, D plus. Felling Blow is, well, I mean, 3 mana to draw a card. And then maybe you play another 4 or 2 later. Yeah, maybe like a C plus. Maybe a C plus. Like you're going to get 2, maybe 3 cards out of this. Felling Blow is a 2 colorless, 1 green sorcery. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Then that creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature and opponent controls. So it's like a bite. Or is this bite or a fight? No, it's a bite. So, and it's a 1/1 counter, so it would go things like Hydra. Solid little like removal and combat trick. Well, it's not a combat trick because it's a sorcery. So removal. But it's at sorcery speed. Oh, like C plus. It's like worth it's worth its price. Inspiring Call is a 2 colorless, 1 green. It's an instant. Draw a card for each creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it. Those creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. This is great. Like I said, commander decks. This is great if you have like synergy. This is fun. This is a harken back to like when Magic was simpler for sure. But is it going to work well in draft? I don't think so. I'm going to put it as, I mean, they have to have 1/1 counters on it. Like it's a C minus, D plus. Reclamation Sage is a 2 colorless, 1 green creature elf. Pay attention to elves. 2/1. When this creature enters, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. It's like a 2-for-1. You get a creature, and you get some artifact or enchantment destruction. So I would C plus, B minus. Blanchwood Armor, 2 colorless, 1 green, enchant aura, enchant creature. When you enter, enchant creature gets +1/+1 for each force you control. I mean, you're gonna get some value out of it. Like you're gonna probably have, well, at least 1 green, if not 2 or 3, by the time you play this. So it's like a 3/3 for 3. And then it will continue to grow, but like rampant growth gives you 3/3 right off the bat. So like, I don't know, C minus. Dwynen, but great in Commander. Dwynen Gilt Leaf Dane, is that an alpha? No, it's not an alpha. Gilt Leaf Dane is a 2 colorless, 3 green legendary creature elf warrior. This is a elf though. 3/4 with reach, nice. Other elf creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever Dwynen attacks, you gain 1 life for each attacking elf you control. Solid. I'll give it a B. Elvish Regrower is 2 colorless, 2 green, creature, elf, druid. When this creature enters, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, and as a 4/3. Interesting. I wonder if green-black is a thing. I mean, you're getting a card back for 4, and it's still a 4/3 body. I would put B-. Needletooth Pack is a 3 colorless, 2 green creature dinosaur. It's a 4/5 for 5. It has Morbid. So at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, put 2 1/1 counters on target creature you control. Is that every time a creature dies? That's really solid. I'll take it. B+. Overrun. Here's a classic. I know this card. 2 colorless, 3 green. It's a sorcery. And creatures you control get +3/+3, and gain trample until end of turn. Again, a victim of power creep throughout the years. Unfortunately, not that great a card. Might still be fun in Commander. It's going in that D+ territory. Quake Strider Ceratops. Here we go, baby. The 12/8. It is a 3 colorless, 3 green creature dinosaur, 12/8. And for the first time in all my travels, I've encountered a creature I can only describe as an apex herbivore. Thank you, Vivian Reed. So this was not a victim of power creep. There was a card that was the same cost way back in the day that was a 6/4. And is a flourisher. What it would be the opposite of a victim of power creep. Somebody that's flourished in that power creep. So they wanted to make something similar, but for the modern power level. And they did it. This is just a big old boy for 6. We'll take it. I like it. It's a B+. Like, grab it. It's one of your bombs on the table. It's hard to deal with. They have to go with direct removal. Otherwise, it's going to be stompy. The Affectionate Indrik is a 5 colorless, 1 green creature beast, 4/4. When this creature enters, you may have it fight target creature you don't control. This is nice. I like it when it comes in. Just fight something. Does 4 damage to it, and the picture's funny. Like, it's trying to be friendly and accidentally does 4 damage to something. So all that to be said, it's a solid card. 6 mana for 4/4. It's a little expensive, but it does then 4 damage to something. I'll give it like a B-. It's the best I can do. Maybe a C+, but B-. And we are on to the first of the rares. Scavenging Ooze. Kept the old art, so I know. So I've always wondered, like, what the hell is going on in this picture? And then I just realized, like, this is the ooze. And it's like eating an alligator. Like, this is the alligator. Like, I forever thought that this alligator thing was like the body, and then this was the head. Interesting. All that to be said. Scavenging Ooze. 1 colorless, 1 green. Creature Ooze, 2/2. Exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a creature card, put a 1/1 counter on this creature, you gain a life. Really solid card. B+, A-. We like it. Loot Exuberant Explorer. Loot's cute. But is it any good? 2 colorless, 1 green, 1/4. All right, from the price, we're a little lackluster. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Again, it's a great, like, commander card. But then you can pay 4 colorless, 2 green, tap, look at the top 6 cards of your library, reveal a creature card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from among them, and put it onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom in random order. Now, that's a really solid ability because, like, to pay 6 to do this, like, you can really just pay for anything that's 6 or less. So that boy, for instance, can just go right onto the battlefield. That's pretty cool. If you can get it to go off, I mean, 3 mana, now you can play 2 land per turn. Like, by turn 3, do you really have extra land in your hand? Maybe. If you do, it'll help you get it out. And then by turn 6... So say turn 3, you have 2 extra lands in your hand. And so now you get to play turn 3, play this. Now you get to play one of those extra lands. So now you're up 4 lands. Then turn 4, you're at 5 lands. So, like, you still need to draw the 6th land in that scenario. But say you only had 1 extra land. Like, say you were right on curve. Like, then what? Right? No. It's tough. It's tough. Like, if you can get this to work, it's pretty solid. But I would say, like, B minus territory. Spinner of Souls is a 2 colorless, 1 green creature spirit, 4/3 with reach. I already like the stats. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card into your hand and the rest in the bottom of your library in random order. Really solid. B plus territory. We like it. Genesis Wave, X colorless and 3 green. It's a sorcery. Reveal the top X cards of your library. You may put any number of permanent cards with mana value X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Then put all cards revealed this way that weren't put onto the battlefield into your graveyard. Okay. Any number of permanent cards with mana value X or less. So this could be really interesting in a constructed deck, because then you know, like, hey, none of my cards are less than are 5 or less. So then you could pay 5 for that and pay 8, and then you could just grab all of your cards and put them on the battlefield, or something crazy, right? But they have to be permanent cards. So how would this play out in draft? I mean, well, again, so it's you can only look at the top X cards. So like if 5 in my example, I could look at the top 5 cards and then grab cards that are 5. I don't know. I think this is too hard to get to work. I'm going to put like C minus D plus territory. Sylvan Scavenging is a 1 colorless, 2 green enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, choose 1. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature control. Create a 3/3 raccoon creature token with if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. So basically, you can pay 3, put this down, and then put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control on your end step. So it's like Innkeeper's Talent, except without the doubling fact. But you do get to choose to put a raccoon out as well. I like it. We're gonna do like a B plus. Mossborn Hydra is a 2 colorless, 1 green creature elemental Hydra. It's a 0/0, but it has trample, and this creature enters with a 1/1 counter on it. Landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, double the number of 1/1 counters on this. So every land after this is played, first land played will be double that, so it's a 2/2. Next land played, it's a 4/4. That's really solid. It's played early enough at 3 that you're likely to get, 1 to 3 extra lands. So even if you got 3, it'd be 1 to 2, 2 to 4, and then 3 to 8. So this thing can get big pretty quick, and it has trample, which is pretty sweet. So I give it like a B plus territory, B plus territory. Elvish Druid, we got another elf, or Archdruid. Now Elvish Archdruid is a 1 colorless, 2 green creature, elf druid, 2/2. Other elf creatures you control get +1/+1, and then add 1 green for each elf you control. Huge ramp for you. I like it. If you have an elf deck, like this is a B plus synergistically. On its own, it counts itself as an elf, so it's a 3 mana 2/2 mana dork. So on its own, it's still like a B minus. Preposterous Proportions is a 5 colorless, 2 green sorcery. Creatures you control get +10/+10 and gain vigilance until end of turn. This thing is just so damn expensive. It'll be hella fun in like a Commander Squirrel deck, like exactly like what's shown here. Just give. All right, I have 73 squirrels, and now they all have +10/+10. What you got? right? In draft, I think it's just going to be too hard. You might take it if you don't have a better pick, but how expensive it is. Hopefully you have like a wide enough board that you can make a few creatures. I don't know, C-, D+. Gulta, Primal Hunger, 10 colorless, 2 green, legendary creature, Elder Dinosaur. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures you control, and it's a 12/12 with trample. So you could potentially, like, what would be? Like 2 5/5s, 3 3/3s, 4 2/2s. Like, you could probably make up that cost pretty quickly to get this out there. So especially if you're in a green deck, there's a lot of like bigger creatures. So, or even elf deck, throwing this in there, you get a bunch of elves, and it just makes this really cheap. I would give it like a B, maybe B+ if you can get it out cheap. Doubling Season. I think is Doubling Season our first? Doubling Season is our first mythic card we're going to take a look at. This is a 4 colorless, 1 green enchantment. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many of those tokens instead. If an effect would put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice that many of those. So like Doubling Season has already been done, I think, a little bit better with like Innkeeper's Talent, but it's still really good in like commander decks for sure. If you're making a 1/1 counter or like a token generation deck, 5 mana does not put it out of reach in draft, but it is a build around like B+, B. If you don't build around this, like, don't even take it. Like, this is a D-, F if you can't build around it. If you were like in pack 3, this was the mythic you were presented, and you had already gone like deep into like counter generation or token generation, then I would snag it for sure. Outside of that, like, it's going to be hard to play in draft. Next up is Vivian Reed, 3 colorless, 2 green, legendary planeswalker. Vivian comes in with 5 loyalty counters. You can +1 it for looking at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. Destroy, I can -3 it. Destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. And then you can -8 it. You get an emblem with creatures you control, get +2/+2, and have vigilance, trample, and indestructible. If you can get it to -8, that's amazing. This is definitely like an A- card for sure. Definitely snag it if you see it. Next up is Quilled Great Worm. This is a 4 colorless, 2 green creature worm, 7/7 trample. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage during your turn, put that many 1/1 counters on it. And then you may cast this card from your graveyard by removing 6 counters from among creatures you control, in addition to paying its other costs. Again, wonderful commander card. If you build a counter deck, this works well. I mean, I guess if you get this early, pack 1, pack 2 as your mythic slot, and I need to just go counters now, like, maybe you could make this happen. But it is 6 mana for 7/7 with trample, so it's still punching above its weight class. So it's a solid B, and then synergistically, you could get this up to like a B+. And that, my friends, is going to wrap up green. We've covered white, blue, black, red, and now green. And we only have a few more left in covering multicolor, colorless, and the lands. If you've made it this far, you might as well like, subscribe, leave a comment below. That's the best way you can support a small content creator like myself, is just following along, watching the videos, getting the word out, interacting. It pushes the video out to everybody else who might enjoy it as well. But I appreciate you hanging out with me and following along in our Play Booster review here with the new Foundation set. And until next time, we'll catch you at the table.